All right, so for today we will be converting our setup from tube tire to tubeless. And this is what you'll need. Well, you won't need everything here, but this is how I like to do it. Of course, you have your wheel set and your, right now I have a pair of Grand Prix 5000 Continental in 28s. These are the tubed variety, right? So we will be converting from tube to tubeless. Why am I doing that? Well, that's a big debate between tubed and tubeless. But yeah, I mean, there are plenty of YouTube videos about that. But for me, I personally like tubeless, especially for events, because you know the small pricks, the small holes you get from the road that will normally flatten you if you have tubed. Normally, you know, maybe a sealant will be able to fix, and you won't even notice the puncture until you finish the ride. So that's one of the advantages. So I have here a set of Vittoria Corsa Pro Control tires, which are really fast. It's my first time trying them out in 30s, right? So maybe a little bit less pressure and a little bit more comfort, right? This is going on my fast bike. I have, of course, my sealant. I have a big version and a small version. This one normally goes in my saddle bag, but for today, what we need here is gonna be this cover, and I'll show you why later on. We have, of course, a pair of nice steel cord tire levers, and of course your tubeless valve. This is also from Hunt. So all of these items that you see in front of you are from, you know, shout out to Supreme Bikes PH Bike Shop. So they're my trusted partner when it comes to equipment, and sometimes also servicing my bikes. All right, here I have a rag, you know, just in case I need to wipe stuff down, especially if the sealant, you know, goes everywhere. At least I can stay clean. I have a weighing scale here. It's a luggage weighing scale, but I can use it to weigh, you know, the setup before and after. Just, you know, you don't have to do that, but I just want to see, you know, any weight gain or savings that I get from converting to tubeless. So I have the rear tire here. The front wheel I already did just now, and it came up to around almost the same. It probably increased the weight by 4 grams, and that's probably because I put a little bit more sealant than usual, but it's okay. I have a caliper here. You don't need this as well, but I like to measure how the tires actually, you know, how wide they do open depending on the wheel set, because sometimes you get a 30C tire, but depending on your inner rim width, it will inflate bigger or smaller than that, right? So I want to make sure that it inflates up to 30 or whatever, if it's smaller or bigger, so that I can adjust my tire pressure accordingly. Well, set of Allens I used to remove the wheel from the bike, so that's fine. You don't really need this to do the setup. I have a pair of small pliers here, and this is really just to help install this later on and get this tighter than finger tight. I have a CO2 cartridge here. As you know, when you set up tubeless, you're gonna need sort of like a burst of air in order to inflate the tire initially. I've had experiences in the past where I didn't need it. You know, maybe I was just lucky with some tires where I just used, you know, regular floor pump. It's not even pressurized or anything, but I was able to sort of do a, you know, fast pumps on the floor pump, and then it inflated, right? So that's lucky. If we don't get to do that, then these are gonna come in handy. So these are CO2 cartridge. I already have one in there. I don't know if I think it's not yet finished. There's still probably some air there because that's also what I use for the front wheel. And this injector, right? So you won't actually need this if you have this. This can also work as an injector if you open it up, right? But I have it and I'm at home anyway, so I'm going to use it. Maybe on the road if I need to use this for setup, then I'll bring that. But for now, I have this. And that's it. Let's get to work. So the first step is, of course, removing your current tubed tire from your wheel set, right? So to do that, you probably know the drill. This is, you know, not uncommon knowledge. So just let the air out, and then we're going to use the tire levers over there in order to remove the tire and the current interior right now. So I have a TPU interior there right now called Right Now. So before we disassemble anything, let's just do a weight check on the current tire. It's at 1.59 kg. This of course includes the cogs and the rotors. So yep, it's gonna stay constant, the cogs and the rotor. So we're just gonna see the effect of the new pair of tires and also the sealant probably, what the effect is on the weight. All right, so probably done this before many times. Just gonna push the tire so that it sort of unseats, even if it's a tube tire. Sometimes, you know, the tire seats on the tubeless rim, right? It's not a perfect seal, but it's enough to make it difficult to remove if you don't do this first, I think. All right, we use our tire lever. Look for a loose spot here. Letting a little bit more air out so that it's more pliable. So I'm by no means a pro mechanic. I'm just, you know, regular enthusiast, like a lot of people. I don't do this for a living, but I like to save some money every now and then, so I do my own setup at home, right? Okay, so we've unseated one side. I'm going to be removing the interior, this TPU. Careful not to damage it because it's still usable. I just used this for one ride. Okay, now it should be easier by hand to get the tire off the rim. All right, there we go. So now what you want to do is just make sure it's clean. Just inspect the rim, you know, make sure that this the tubeless tape, right? So I'm lucky that this wheel set already has tubeless tape installed. It's been run tubeless before by the previous owner. So, you know, hopefully it keeps sealed and it's still okay. But for you guys who have a rim that aren't set up for tubeless yet, that you don't have the tape yet, then you're gonna need the tape. And this is when, you know, you'll clean this up, probably replace the existing tape, and then you can tape over it. I'm sure there are also plenty of YouTube videos about that. It's better to use specific tubeless tape, right? So you'll see a lot of Google results showing that they are able to use Gorilla Tape or you know, even electrical tape with some success. But yeah, I mean, this is what it's used for, so it's better to use the actual tubeless rim tape specific for tubeless rims. So yep, now that that's there and it looks clean, it looks sealed, I'm going to go ahead and put our tubeless valve onto the tire, the wheel, the ring. So yeah, just remove the lock ring there and insert it into that hole, right? So tubeless valves are made of rubber at the other end, so they should also have a seal, but it needs to go on a little bit tight, right? So when we put the lock ring back in, we're gonna have to screw it on tight, you know, tighter than finger tight, just to make sure that the rubber is you know, well seated into the hole there and that there are no leaks. And that's what, you know, we will use a small wrench for. This is, you can use a bigger wrench. This is actually super small, and the reason why I have this is in case on the road I need to make you know, repairs, right? So for example, if I get a flat on the road while I'm on tubeless, and if I need to, you know, let's say I try to plug it up or whatever, it doesn't work. If I need to put on an interior tube as a last resort, and you know, I already tightened this too tight with this, I probably won't be able to use my fingers on the road to loosen it to replace with the, you know, with the tubed with the tube. So I have this, I put it on my saddlebag just to make sure, and I'm gonna use it as well to sort of make sure that it is a little bit tight, you know, not super tight. You know, you don't want to damage the rim or anything, right? So just enough to sort of make sure that it's on there pretty well, right? So okay, so there you go. Now the next step is to put on your tires, tubeless tires, right? So this is going to be similar to a tubeless tube setup. It's the same principles, right? So we have the Vittoria Corsa Pro Control. I'm according to my research, this is their product, which is fast enough but still has enough sort of grip and puncture protection in order to go, you know, for endurance rides, for example, and events. I mostly ride endurance events. I don't really have a lot of races that I go to, so I'm not opting for full speed. But it would be nice to have sort of like a good balance between speed, comfort, and puncture protection, right? So most tires will have a small arrow there. I don't know if you can see that, probably not, but there's a small arrow there. Most tires will have arrows to show you the rotational sort of direction, and in this case it goes like this, right, with the drivetrain on the right. And then what I do, and this is just cosmetic, but I see it, you know, being done most of the time, is I line up the logo, or at least the middle of the logo, or the brand. So here you see the brand, Vittoria Corsa Pro Control. I line it up to be sort of in the middle of the valve there, you know, just to make it look nice. I've seen people do it. So now we put this on. It's very similar to how you put on, you know, your usual tube type tires. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm not an expert. I don't have very strong thumbs either, or fingers to be able to do this by hand. So I normally still use a nice tire lever. I use my thumb to sort of hold one side in place, and use the other hand to sort of leverage the tire into place slowly like this. There you go, it's in. And when that's there, you can do the same to the other side. Just I'm working away from the valve here, starting here, because, you know, the valve there, as I showed you earlier, has that rubber thing. So I don't want to you know, put the lever here if I need to, because I might damage the valve. So I try to put this in first at the valve, and then I work my way around. So far, yeah, I can get up to there with my thumbs, if you can see that, before I need to use my trusty valve. So again, one thumb on one side, one lever on the other, and I'm just gonna, you know, just nudge that in slowly, little by little. Little by little. Come on. Alright, so sometimes my thumb is not enough, so I need another lever to sort of put here as a wedge. So that happens sometimes. And, you know, the thing with changing tires, putting them on, it's a process, right? So it's trial and error. You find your own style. There are the best ways to do it, but, you know, you might not be good at those ways. So, you know, more often than not, you will develop your own style and technique that you're familiar with, comfortable with, right? But what it takes is a lot of practice. So, you know, don't just depend on the times when you get a flat to practice changing your tires. Every now and then you need to just practice at home if you can. For me, what works is I like to experiment with tires. It's a little expensive, but, you know, I like to see what gains I can get with tires, so I change them often. So for example, this one that I replaced has been used less than 1,000 kilometers. You know, the bike's mostly indoor, so this is pretty fresh. I'm probably gonna sell this you know, secondhand for the discount, but it's still okay, right? Now, so yeah, you got it here. It's in there all around. Next thing you want to do is to try to pump it up, right? I have a track pump here. Oops, sorry rotor. Track pump here. And sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't, that's okay. At least we tried, you know. So I'm gonna try to pump really fast just to see if it will inflate. And looks like it does, right? So it doesn't have any sealant yet, but that's fine. Our intention here is really just to seat the tire. There's gonna be some leaks there, but hopefully they're small enough that we're able to inflate fully, which we are so far, right? Alright, and that's 60 psi for a 30 tire, which is more than I would put normally in a ride, but when we're seating, it's okay to go a little bit over your riding pressure, right? So that actually looks good. Now, we were lucky, it just took a floor pump to inflate it, but more often than not, you might need to use a CO2 cartridge. So what is a CO2 cartridge? It's basically it's this thing. It's basically, you know, compressed air, CO2, carbon dioxide, and what it does is it can inflate your tire really quickly. So normally this is used on the road instead of, you know, instead of bringing your bulky hand pump and pumping, you know, hundreds of pumps in order to inflate a flat tire, for example, or a repaired tire. Then all you need to do is just use a CO2 cartridge. Normally it comes with some sort of adapter. Let me see if I have an adapter here. Yeah. So normally it comes with some sort of adapter, right? In this case, this is the adapter, right? So that CO2 is, the hole there means that this one's already been used. Basically it goes in there, you know, you screw it in. Depends on your adapter, right? So for this one, it has a spring, and the moment you sort of use this to inflate a valve, the action of pressing on this with that spring releases the air, and the air is released super quickly. It almost mimics the air pump coming from a compressor, which is a compressor machine, which is usually what most bike shops use to set up tubeless in the bike shop, right? But for now, we're gonna do it, you know, just using CO2. So like I said earlier, this one is it's already in there. So one very important thing with using CO2 is to have some sort of, you know, insulator, right? So maybe you can use a rag or just a foam that you can put over this, or in this case, the carrier of the CO2 is also sort of your, you know, insulator. Why? Because when you release the CO2 from the cartridge, it becomes super cold. It turns into ice, right? Even the valve turns to ice. And when that happens, you know, you might damage your hand or it might be painful, right? So it's better to do the CO2 with some sort of cover. So I'm gonna go back to our tire here. It's already beginning to deflate a little bit, and that's understandable because we don't have sealant yet. But basically this is what you do. You know, I'm gonna demonstrate how to do it here, just so you can see, because we were lucky. I just used the pump, but for the front tire that I did a while ago, I wasn't so lucky. So I'm gonna let out the air completely so you can see how to do it with the CO2 cartridge. All right, so the air is out pretty much, and all I have to do, after I already screwed the cartridge into the adapter and put on, you know, my insulator there, I just put it into the thing, into the valve, and I just press on it, right? There you go. Make sure to not over inflate, because you have a lot of pressure in the CO2. You might, you know, go over the pressure if you don't release immediately. So here, you'll see it took a few seconds. It's not as inflated as the pump, but it's good enough because you have the seat already. And once it's good enough like that, then you can continue with the pump. At least with the pump, I can control the pressure, right? So we pumped it up to around 20 psi. That's not a lot, but it's good enough for tubeless seating. I'm gonna pump it back up, just so we go through the motions. But actually, this is already good. It's already seated from when we pumped for earlier using just hand pump, just not a hand pump, floor pump. All right, so next step is we're gonna put some sealant in. So to put some sealant in, of course, definitely you need to have it deflated, right? So I'm gonna deflate it back out, but not all the way, right? I mean, as far as it will go without putting pressure on it, right? So there, all right, that's pretty good. It is soft already. I'm gonna put the wheel aside for now, and I'm gonna get our materials for the sealant. All right. So the rag sealant, right now I'm using this Vittoria Sealant. I used to have the Cafe Latex Mariposa sealant, but I switched to this one because it was available, and I've seen good results with this anyway from my previous rides, so should be good. And there's guidance on how much sealant to put in. I remember when I was running 28s, the guidance was like something like 30 ml. So these are 30. I'm gonna err on the side of putting a little bit more sealant just to be sure. Before I put the sealant, I need to remove the core, right? So because what I do, some people, especially mountain bikers, they put the sealant sort of before they seat the tire, right? Because bigger tires are easier to sit, and you have a bigger mountain bike tire, the sealant can sort of sit there. But for me, I like to put it after seating, and I put it through the valve, right? So the tubeless valves usually have a removable core, and this one has it too, right? So to remove the core, you can actually use any wrench to sort of unscrew the core. But for me, I'm just going to use the cover of this small serving sealant. It also doubles as sort of a valve core remover tool, right? I also have a valve core remover tool, but I can't find it right now, so I'm just going to use this one. Doesn't matter anyway. And this is what I'm going to use on the road. So when you practice changing tires or setting up tubeless or whatever, it's important that you use the same tools that you're going to use on the road, so that you're used to using those tools and not having some super nice tool at home, and then when you get on the road you're using these small compact lightweight tools that you're not used to or familiar with, and it might be more difficult, right? It's tough enough changing a tire by yourself on the road. Don't make it any tougher. So before I load this with sealant, I'm going to screw it in here. This is a stance sort of injector, right? Actually, this particular bottle also has a way, I can also screw this into the valve and put sealant directly from the bottle. But that's probably what I'm going to do if I'm out on the road, and I need to add some sealant. I'm going to use this. But for now, we're at home. I just said, use the same things at home and at the road, but in this case, I've used this before, so I'm used to it, and shouldn't be an issue. So I'm just gonna screw that in and turn it around, and this is where I'll put in my sealant. Where's my sealant? Oh, there you go. I'm gonna put around 40 ml. See there. Oops, see, I told you. It's gonna splash all around. Okay. 40 ml of sealant. That's very messy. It's going down on its own, right? But I'm still gonna use the injector plug, which is here. So I'm just gonna use it to make sure we get every bit of fluid into the tire, just to make sure. All right, when I do that, I'm now gonna unscrew the injector from the tire, from the valve. All right, there you go. It's a little messy, but you've got most of the sealant sort of sloshing around here at the tire. I'm gonna put that aside for now so that I can wipe up a little bit. Clean as you go, and I'm gonna wash this injector a little bit later on as well. Okay, so now that the sealant is on there, the next step is to put the valve back in, valve core back in. So where's my valve core? There you go. Valve core. So I will finger screw it to start with, and then I'm gonna use the tool to put it on tight. Not too tight, you know. When I removed it a while ago, it wasn't too tight. Just finger tight, and not even all the way. You know, don't crank it. It's a very small and delicate part. So now that we have sealant, I will carefully put this on, you know, so that the valve is up there, and then I can pump. Right? So we're gonna inflate again to around 60 psi or more. These are 30s. I'll probably ride them in 55 psi, but hopefully, you know, since we already seated the tire earlier, it will be much easier to pump. You won't need the CO2 again. Hopefully. I mean, it could be that you might need it, but that should be fine. So I'm pumping this up to around 60. There you go. You heard that crack? That means the tire has seated and has seated fully in some parts of it. I'm gonna pump it just a little bit above 60 there. Now that it's there, our setup is complete. But what you want to do, and this is very important, is you want to turn the tire, you know, just like how it would turn or revolve when you're riding, right? So this is very important. Sorry, before I turn the tire, I'm gonna talk because it's gonna be noisy. So got a little bit of leaking over there. Maybe that means we didn't put the valve too what do you call this, too tight enough. So you might need to reset this in a while. I'm gonna try to tighten it right now. Right, it's good. It's sort of stopped the leaking a little bit, right? So you want to turn the tire, make it spin so that you can get the sealant all over, right? And any spots where air might leak, the sealant's going to take care of it, right? So I'm going to do that. And I might do that longer, right? What I'm gonna do actually now after we finish the video is I'm gonna put this on my bike, and I'm just gonna, you know, spin the bike, crank the pedal manually, just to make it spin a little bit more. Ideally, you know, if you're comfortable that it hasn't been inflating quickly, go for a short ride, and nothing too far, maybe a 5-minute ride around your neighborhood or even around your yard, you know, just to make sure that you can test the weight bearing, right, with your weight on it, with the proper pressure, and, you know, just to make sure that with your weight on it, with a few small potholes, any movement of the tire is not going to result in a leak, or if it does, the sealant gets to it immediately. So I would probably ride the bike after I, you know, convert to tubeless for around 5 to 10 minutes outside, and put it back in. And then the crucial step is that the next day, hopefully, it stays, you know, pretty well inflated, at least respectably. If you go down 10 psi, that's probably okay. But anything more than that, if you go lower overnight, then you might need to sort of add sealant or reseat your tire. It might have been, you know, not 100% success. And that's been the case with me. I'll probably say I would have a 50-50 success rate with the tires being sealed the next day, right? And not losing too much pressure. So yes, and that's it. So we've converted to tubeless and at home, right? So we saved a little bit of money, and thanks for watching. Right, by the way, one thing I forgot to do was to weigh the tire after the tubeless setup. So this is the different tire now, and we have our weighing scale there, which is all right. So we increased weight by 5 is it 50 grams? 1.64, yeah, 50-gram increase in the weight. I think it was a 40-gram increase in the weight for the front wheel, but that's fine. It's expected because not only are we adding tubeless, but this is also a beefier tire from 28s to 30. So there's a little bit more rubber material there. It will contribute to our comfort. Overall, 90 grams additional. Maybe if you're a super weight weedy, you won't like it, you won't be happy. But for me, the added comfort of being able to run, you know, probably 55 psi as compared to 60, which I run my 28s. So that's going to be, you know, a little bit more grip, more comfort. Not to mention the huge upside of running tubeless, which is, you know, small punctures immediately being taken care of by the sealant. All right, that's it. All right, so it's the next day. We left the tires overnight and it looks like they held pressure, so that's good. We lost a few psi, which is understandable, but yeah, so home tubeless conversion successful.